Jorg, thank you very much for the invitation to come and share our story with you today. The presentation I'm about to share with you, we actually keynoted at the NCFTA Disruption Conference in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago. That was a 3-hour presentation, so I'm going to whistle through it in a 30-minute version of it. I can already hear the intake of breath. So we founded an organization called the Hacking Games 3 years ago. We're a British business. Our vision is to create a generation of ethical hackers to make the world safer. The reason why we're doing that are reasons for which you'll all be super familiar with. Last year, if you believe the data, cybercrime cost the world $10.5 trillion. If that data is true, and there's always discussion around the accuracy of the data, then that is the global cost of COVID, according to the IMF. Next year, cybercrime is due to cost the world $24 trillion. If that number is true, that's the GDP of the United States. Whether those numbers are completely accurate doesn't really matter. What matters is the direction of travel. It is such a major phenomenon that Warren Buffett called it as the #1 problem for mankind. And cyber attacks are a bigger threat to humanity than nuclear weapons. And of course, you all know that. That's why you're in the room. The interesting thing is, who are the bad guys? And of course, the focus goes on hostile state actors, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, and that's of course true. And the focus goes on the organized cyber gangs, sexily labeled, such as Scattered Spider and the Com, also true. However, the data shows that the vast majority of the cyber criminals are kids. The world's largest data research was commissioned by the EU, led by Professor Julia Davidson from the University of East London. She interviewed 9,000 teenagers across Europe and the UK. And the data showed that 69% of those kids interviewed have committed a cybercrime or a gross cyber misdemeanor. Now, the baseline for that is pretty low in Europe. So, for example, if you've watched an illegal stream of the Premier League football on a dodgy channel because you don't want to pay Sky's fees, then you are technically a cyber criminal, in which case the kids of about half the people in this room are probably cyber criminals. What's more interesting is that 45% of the teenagers have committed an act of serious financial crime. That includes identity theft, cryptocurrency fraud, gaming currency fraud. 45%. In an average classroom, that's about 12 to 14 kids have committed an act of serious financial crime. 7% have committed an act of terror. Now, I find that hard to digest, but we're fortunate to work with the FBI, Europol, Interpol, the National Crime Agency, and what they will tell you is that the average age of someone arrested for serious crime is 37 years old. But the average age of someone arrested for cybercrime is 19 years old. And if you look anecdotally at the hacks over the last couple of years, you can see that the evidence is front and center. The hack on the Co-op and Marks and Spencer's and Harrods, which is the largest group of retailers in the UK last year, cost £450 million. The 4 individuals arrested for that last year were aged 17 years old, 19 years old, and 2 20-year-olds. The 2 individuals who are in court right now for the hack on Transport for London, the infrastructure transport system in the UK, that cost £10 million and is associated with a $150 million crypto hack, both aged 18 years old. More worryingly, the 2 Dutch nationals arrested in The Hague for hacking into the embassies were both aged 18 years old, recruited by Russian intelligence off Telegram. And that's a story that keeps on playing. There was an article that came out just yesterday in the Financial Times which exposed the manipulation of young people by hostile state actors through Telegram and the Discord and Signal to destabilize their own countries, recruited off the social media platforms and the gaming platforms. And perhaps most dramatically, the Jaguar Land Rover hack, the largest hack in history, last year that has cost £2.5 billion, has caused 140 companies on the supply chain to go bankrupt, and has necessitated a £1.5 billion government bailout, which the government equated to 2 months of stagnant GDP, executed by Scattered Spider. Average age of Scattered Spider, according to law enforcement, is between 17 to 22 years old. And yet again, the security briefings are showing that they believe it was Russian intelligence manipulating and conscripting young teenagers and agitating them to destabilize a Western government infrastructure. So the profile of the kids is extremely young. This generation is a generation of natural-born hackers. They're at an ethical fork in the road. Are they going to be an asset to society, or are they going to be a liability? And the first thing we need to understand is their entry point. The entry point is gaming. Every hacker is a gamer. Systems identification, pattern recognition, using neurodiversity to see around corners and solve problems, hyper-focused, hyper-competitive, and willing to cheat to win. But this is not new. We've known this since 1940, when Winston Churchill realized that to win the Second World War, he needed American involvement and he needed to crack the Enigma code. So he briefed an autistic mathematician, Alan Turing, to put together a team of what he called corkscrew minds, minds who think differently. And Alan Turing, he put cryptographic puzzles into the newspaper. And if you could solve this puzzle, you could get an interview at Bletchley Park and get the chance to join the team. And the people who solved the puzzles were predominantly Polish, autistic women. There is a deep heritage of gaming mindsets underpinning in accompaniment with neurodiversity, underpinning cryptography, which is the basis of today's cybersecurity industry. The thing that's changed is gaming. There are now 3.2 billion gamers in the world. 93% of Gen Z game. And if you look at their consumption behaviors, they spend on average 147 minutes per day gaming. That is more time gaming than doing their homework. And of course, what happens? Parents like me, I have 3 kids, clutch our pearls. We panic. Why is my son or daughter wasting their time playing Call of Duty and not doing quantum mathematical theory? But what we don't understand is that gaming is a live laboratory for skills development. Unfortunately, right now, it's practical learning, because the pathway from a gamer to a hacker is pretty consistent. This is a model that we received from the National Crime Agency in the UK that shows the pathway a kid goes through when they go from being a gamer to a hacker. It starts early, at about 6 to 8 years old. Actually, it starts at about 4 years old on iPads. If you go to your local pizza restaurant, you will now see kids on iPads playing computer games at the age of 4 years old. When I was 4 years old in a pizza restaurant, my face was face down in the pizza, cheese all over my face. So the times have changed. What happens now is that they start getting into complex games at around 8 years old, strategic games, challenging games. And then they start to expand into the creative exploratory games like Roblox and Minecraft. 79.5 million kids a day play Roblox. 140 million a day play Minecraft. So they start to get into the games, and then they start to get rewards. They start to win currency. They start to get the dopamine hit of winning and being competitive. And that's when they get cheated on. They get scammed. Ask any of your kids or your godchildren, your nephews, your nieces about have they been scammed in gaming. It's 100% hit rate. And once they get scammed, they start to work out how did they get scammed. And that's where I introduce you to Connor and Ricky. Connor on the left is got a somewhat tragic beginning of his life. At 9 years old, his father committed suicide. Connor is one of 7 kids with his mum living in Dublin, in a lower economic part of Dublin. His mum was running 3 jobs to keep the show on the road. She's an amazing woman. Managed to keep the kids fed, looked after, on her own as a single mum. Connor's autistic. And by 11 years old, he was falling out of the academic system. It wasn't for him. And he had a disruptive childhood experience. So he found his community on Minecraft. Connor's really, really good at Minecraft. It was very clear he was performing super well. And by the age of 12, he started getting groomed by an adult-aged North American person. And that person tempted him by showing how to teleport between Minecraft worlds, how to hack the games, how to modify the software. And Connor got sucked in. Fast forward 4 years, Connor's front door is knocked down with the Irish police surrounding his house and surrounding him, and he was arrested for his part in a $15 million crypto heist. Connor got a 108-year extradition sentence from the US, which he managed to commute down by handing back 140 Bitcoin to the victims that he had frauded. Connor ended up serving 2 years in jail. He got out 2 years ago. The other side of the story is Ricky Handschumacher. Ricky was an elite-level athlete. He was a baseball player in America, top 10 by the age of 15 in the country. He had a pathway to college, perhaps even a career in the MLB. At 15 years old, he was playing Halo, a shoot-'em-up game, and the opposition he was competing against DDoSed him, cut his connectivity, knocked him out of the game. And Ricky is neurodivergent, hyper-focused, hyper-competitive. So he wanted to find out how he did it. He went online and he found out how he did it. And then he started doing it himself. And after a while, he got groomed from the Discord with someone saying, "Hey, Ricky, you're really good at this. Why don't I teach you how to use your skills to do even more interesting things?" Ricky then also got involved into crypto hacking, and Ricky got a 4-year jail sentence, and he came out last year. These are 2 kids who were referred to us by law enforcement as great kids, bad decisions, disruptive lifestyles, neurodivergent, gaming enthusiasts, groomed off gaming platforms. But that story can go one of 2 ways. Right now, Ricky, unfortunately, is driving a truck, really struggling to break into his new life. He's got 2 young kids, but he's barred from any sort of career with technology. Connor, however, has found a redemption path. Connor, whilst he was in jail, completed a cybersecurity degree at UCD in Dublin. He has now focused his life on inspiring young people to be ethical hackers, not cyber criminals. He's now still playing games, and I'm proud to say he's leading our offensive hacking unit. People like Connor are incredibly talented, real assets, but need to be guided and need to be given pathways and need to be seen. Connor couldn't get a job in any technology company. And now, if you want to find his story, you can look it on The Guardian and The Times and ABC Good Morning America that tells his story. The reality is we can learn an awful lot from what these guys do gaming, and we can enhance their talents to actually protect society and give them pathways to use their skills in a meaningful way. We commissioned the world's first research that looked at what can you learn from the computer games someone plays, how they hack those computer games, and their levels of neurodiversity. And what does that trifecta of data show us about their potential as an elite-level ethical hacker? And the results are super interesting. There's an awful lot you can identify from gaming behaviors, from pattern recognition, systems thinking, solutions ideation and creating, and how that can pass into the cybersecurity sector. On a really practical level, you can simply look at their abilities to modify software. Every gamer from this generation is modifying the software of the games to cheat to win. So when we were growing up, it was Monopoly, and Dad was hiding the extra money under the board in order to win against the kids. Definitely that happened to me. This generation, they're modifying softwares. And the simple example, if Jorik and I are playing Call of Duty together, I'm not very smart. So I'm going to try to aim manually at him and shoot him in the head in order to get him. Low probability of success. But Jorik, we all know Jorik is very, very smart because he tells us all the time. And Jorik has written his own modification software. What Jorik has done is created an aimbot that enables him to aim at my head and shoot me automatically without him having to do anything. The net result is he wins, I lose, go home and cry like a loser, and he goes on to the next round of the competition, where he has a chance to win cryptocurrency or gaming credit. The skill sets used to create an aimbot are memory injection, malware hooking, and MITIP. Highly developed cybersecurity skill sets. But guess what? If a kid has been doing that for 10 years since they're 11, it's invisible. It's not on their LinkedIn profile. It's not on their resume. It's not on their Indeed. It's not on their resumes that are written by ChatGPT and read by ChatGPT, so just 2 ghosts talking to each other. It's an invisible set of skills. But the truth is, if someone interviews him, he has more real-world experience than the middle-aged cybersecurity professional who's interviewing. But we don't see it. The correlation between gameplay and modification softwares and cybersecurity is really, really, really tight. You can see from the games that people play how they think. The games like EVE Online, which is a deeply long strategic game, takes about 3.5 years to complete. We'll teach you long-term strategic thinking, systems-level understanding, pattern recognition, intelligence gathering, and social engineering. So we've evaluated 140 games to understand the splits and divisions and the learning processes that people get from playing these games and what that means for their aptitude as a hacker. And we use that to build a product, Haptai, the Hacking Aptitude AI platform, that takes the gameplay styles, takes the way they hack the games, and takes their levels of neurodiversity in order to identify their potential as a cybersecurity specialist and an ethical hacker based on what they do for their hobby. And I'm going to introduce you just to a quick 2-minute showcase of how that works. This is going to work, boys, isn't it? We promise this. We promise this.
Welcome to the Hacking Games Terminal. Today we're going to explore how Haptai, the world's first hacking aptitude AI model, is rewiring how we create the next generation of ethical hackers. What if the cybersecurity skills gap isn't about a lack of talent, but how we're looking for it? Every day, brilliant minds are filtered out by systems that are designed to value experience over aptitude. Gamers, builders, and tinkerers, all hidden in plain sight. Haptai looks for something else. The potential hidden in how people play, think, and adapt.
Digital natives have grown up in worlds of feeds, alerts, and constant collaboration. They don't just consume technology, they understand it. Pattern recognition, improvisation, systems thinking. But the world of work still asks them for a CV instead of proof of mindset. Meet Ria, 21, works as a line chef by night and spends her free time gaming, building cheat detecting mods, and wondering if that could ever count as experience. No forms, no time limits, just curiosity. The system comes to life, and her journey starts here. Every icon grayed out above represents a potential persona. The core, the exploiter, the visionary, the manipulator, the defender, the strategist, the fixer, the alchemist, and the executor. Ria starts with her comfort zone, games. She picks Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Dwarf Fortress. Each choice reveals how she thinks. Counter-Strike, precision and anticipation. Valorant, teamwork and trust. Dwarf Fortress, complex systems and resource strategy. Her XP grows, not through points or scores, but through insight. Every move becomes a data point. Haptai uniquely maps how she approaches uncertainty, learns patterns, and adapts to change. This isn't a test. It's a conversation in a safe space where unconventional thinkers finally speak freely. Haptai adapts to her tone, learns from her answers, and starts piecing together how her brain solves problems. The more context she gives, the smarter the model becomes. Next, Ria adds a project, a cheat detection mod she coded for Counter-Strike. She explains how she trained the model to flag aimbots and wall hacks without false positives. For the first time, her self-taught experiments are recognized as real technical achievement. Then, her Try Hack Me challenges sync instantly. 3 completed labs become evidence of applied offensive and defensive skills. The CV is optional. For the first time, it isn't the measure of her potential, just another layer of insight. Her report visualizes how she thinks, a unique mix of strategy, curiosity, and discipline. Her top aptitudes: crisis decision-making, systems thinking, adversarial simulation, boundary pushing. And her best fit roles: security researcher, network security engineer, product security engineer. For Ria, it's a moment of recognition. The world finally sees her the way she's always seen herself, completely capable, and now ready for a career in cybersecurity. Haptai uniquely turns curiosity into career paths, gaming into growth, potential into purpose. Built different, wired to win.
So Ria is a real person, and we come across so many of these often neurodivergent, invisible talents who don't have a pathway and are not seen. And we are fortunate enough to now work with governments all around the world to run national programs where we go into high schools, community colleges, we go into gaming groups, to access these kids, inspire them that as gamers they can have careers, evaluate their talent, and then enable them with our commercial partners to give them apprenticeships and job opportunities. In the UK, we'll reach 24,000 kids over the next 6 months, and with a pathway to reaching 1 million with the government's Tech First program. In Albania, we'll get to 170,000 young talent over the next 6 months. In Kosovo, it's another 30,000. Kosovo, by the way, what an amazing talent bed for hackers. Don't know why, but it's incredible. And in Saudi Arabia, we have a government partnership to reach 42,000 professional gamers whose retirement age is 22 years old. And if you take the thesis of high performance in gaming, then there's an amazing talent bed of future hackers there. What's really interesting is as we progress through this world, we're building an understanding of how this generation hacks. We work with a lot of organizations and governments to provide the elite level talent. We're not a talent company, we're just happy to provide the data that enables them to take it. But as we work with this young talent, we're understanding how they hack. And what we've realized is that the cybersecurity industry is in danger of becoming the Maginot Line. After the First World War, the French built a complex trench system in 1928 to stop the Germans invading France, and they did it along the border of Germany. It was deep, it was long, it was wide, it was expensive, it cost an enormous amount of money. The problem was, it was designed for people riding horses. But by this point, the Germans had developed the Panzer tank division. So the Germans simply drove to Belgium, through the Ardennes forest, and invaded France without a bullet being shot. The danger is that if you build defenses based on historical attacks and not for the new wave of attacks, then you will always be vulnerable. You will never be able to see around the corner. And the new Gen Z attack threat don't hack like they do historically. The Jaguar Land Rover hack, the guys didn't use any software. They socially engineered their way in. They used employee credentials, lived off the land undetected, still inside the organizations, didn't trigger any of the defense systems designed for software detection. Connor and our hackers in the lab, when they go and hack organizations on request, they don't use any software. They behave inside the organization like the organizations have never seen before. And we've built that data system to identify the behavioral attack chains to be able to show how they move inside an organization and what the defenses are. This is an example of the kind of outputs that we can identify. What you'll see on the red lines are the behavioral attack chains of these Gen Z hackers moving through an organization. What you'll see on the green blobs are the existent tech defense systems and detection systems. And what you'll notice is they move around undetected. We're now in a situation where we can replicate these behavioral attack chains at scale based on our evergreen group of young hackers hacking organizations that enables organizations to see where their defenses are being circumvented. And the fact that in a lot of the critical infrastructure organizations, there are young hackers' sleep cells inside them without being detected is a sign that this is really, really needed as a function. So ultimately, that's how we're helping organizations. We're offering black teaming, which is red teaming with the gloves off. Attack threats based on neurodivergent Gen Z gamer hackers with our lab of the top 1% in the world hacking these organizations. It works for us because we get to give work, paid work to this brilliant young talent that keeps them away from the dark side. And our partners get to understand how they would be attacked by this new attack threat and what they can do in order to build their defenses. That enables everyone to think like the new Gen Z hacker. And we work with government and enterprises. So we do our black teaming, we do with governments, defense companies, and critical infrastructure organizations. Our simulator we just showed is rolling out with our test partners, with Deloitte at the moment. And then from a talent perspective, governments and big companies are coming to us asking for the next wave of elite level talent, which our Haptai product enables them to find. Next week, we're in DC launching our nonprofit, our 501c, which the FBI very kindly handed to us, where we will be doing 3 things. We will run research into understanding why this young generation fall into cybercrime and what we can do to prevent it. We are launching a mentorship platform to connect mentors with young people so that we can provide pathways for them away from the issues. And then we're going to be working at state level and ultimately Fed level to start to change the policies for developing neurodivergent gamer talent so that they have options and don't end up in the same position as Ricky and have a chance to be identified and given pathways. What I want to leave you with is a tale of two people. Ultimately, the industry is, of course, enormously software-led. But having spent a lot of time with these neurodivergent, brilliant young hackers, I'm so convinced that it's human-led. And when you look at two people, on this side, you'll see Marcus Hutchins. If you're not familiar with Marcus, he's probably the most famous hacker in the world. Marcus came to fame in 2017 when the WannaCry virus hit the world. It was the first global computer virus. It was designed by the North Koreans, and it took down the hospital systems in 250 countries around the world. The UK went down first, and it went down hard. And as you know, the UK is dependent on one healthcare system. People couldn't get hospital appointments. People couldn't get any of their data for the pre-operations. No medications could be delivered. The world gathered, the GCHQ, the NSA, all of the intelligence agencies trying to find a way of getting this virus offline. The person who found the kill switch wasn't a cybersecurity professional. He was an autistic, mixed race, 17-year-old kid who was kicked out of school at 14 and was surfing and smoking dope away from the world on the west coast of the United Kingdom. And that was Marcus Hutchins. He became world famous, front cover of Wired magazine, the hacker who saved the internet. He was then flown to Las Vegas to present at Black Hat and DEF CON. And after his presentation, he got pulled by the FBI. And he said, "Oh, you want me to tell you how clever I am?" They were like, "No, Marcus. When you were 13 years old, you wrote financial malware. And that's been used for serious financial crime, and you're going to jail." He got a 10-year jail sentence. But the judge who gave him that jail sentence put a red line through it. Because you're the hacker who saved the internet, I want you to be an icon to young people to show that you have a decision to make. Do you create financial malware and fraud, or do you solve the WannaCry virus and use your skills to protect society? Marcus is now an icon in the industry. He's like the Harry Styles of the hacking community. And I'm proud to say Marcus works for us. He's a shareholder in our organization, and he is leading our hacking lab with Connor. And he is an icon to young people and to older people about how we can harness this talent to do good, not bad. And then we look to Marco, which is why we should all be incredibly optimistic about the future. When Marco was 2 years old, he did that thing that all toddlers do when you take stuff out of the kitchen cabinet. And Katerina, his mum, she went desperate, so she put padlocks on every kitchen cabinet. She came downstairs, and Marco had lockpicked the padlocks at 2 years old. At 3 years old, he wrote his first code. At 5 years old, he wrote his first malware. At 11 years old, he keynoted at Black Hat, the youngest ever keynote in the major cyber conferences. He's now 15. And Marco is teaching cybersecurity to the computer science postgrads at the King Abdullah Science and Technology University in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah. Marco is a savant. He didn't go down the criminal pathway. Why? Because Katerina saw his capabilities. She saw his potential. She actually took him out of school at 4 because she knew that wasn't going to work. She put a lot of her love and her sacrifice into creating a world for him to be him. And because of that, Marco is now the most influential young hacker for this generation in the world. And I'm proud to say he's the founder of our youth community. If we do our jobs properly, we can identify Marcos. We can make sure if they don't fit the education process, we can look at their skill sets developed in the gaming world and provide pathways and opportunities for them to make society safer. This is not philanthropy. This is the enablement of the most valuable human resource in this generation. And if we do our jobs right, we can create a generation of ethical hackers to make the world safer. Thank you.